Follow trawler. It's because I think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Surprised you there, Liam? Didn't I surprise you there? So the wee jump. Yeah, the intro again is playing up, so I'm having to do all sorts of workarounds to sort this because yeah, it was playing up. So I had to take it off the screen and then wait for it to just come up the background. But what a background it is, the National Stadium in Poland, because yes, tonight, it's Friday night, it is 9 o'clock. You know what that means? It's Bustalgia time. And of course, we're back on the trail of doing World Cups in Europe. So not only have we time traveled tonight, we've also traveled to a completely different country. We've landed in Warsaw, Poland, because tonight it is Euro 2012, hosted in Poland and the Ukraine. So for the second time tonight, hello everybody, I'm Phil. Welcome along to the Boise Bus. And I'm joined, of course, by Liam Greenlaw, Canada's favourite Celtic fan. Liam, I always saw you about an hour ago, but how you doing, mate?
I'm still raging.
Still raging. Well, this is a wee palate cleanser, and we're going to forget what happened earlier on. We've said our piece on it. There'll be plenty of times over the weekend to say I expect Boise will probably do his own show as well over the weekend about it. But yeah, that story is going to be with us for a wee while. But no, wee break. We're going to go back and look at Euro 2012 tonight, and yeah, let's get into it. Before we do, though, I once again, as a designated driver, must remind everybody to do all that good stuff. So, if you want to get involved in our live comments, then please do. That always helps get some interaction up on the screen. Tell us your memories for Euro 2012. There's a few Celtic connections at this tournament, so we'll be talking about that. Obviously, a like is massively appreciated. It helps with the old algorithm on YouTube. And if, of course, you're a first-time watcher of the Boise Bus and you've just stumbled across this channel, then drop a wee subscription on it. You might actually like the content. 3,000 people have done it so far. So as I keep saying, must be doing something right if that many people are liking this humble little channel. And yeah, if you want to share us on any social media platforms to get word of the bus out there, then by all means, please do so. We massively appreciate it. And also you'll see up in the top right corner of the show tonight, the Brain Tumor charity logo. Obviously, Russell usually joins us on Bustalgia, which has been a regular thing for the last few weeks. But obviously tonight he is actually hosting a charity gig for them, and there was a show he did through the week with Greg O'Neill from the Inn in Dunfermline where it's been hosted. So Russell is doing his MCing tonight. He has vowed to me though he will not be coaxed into getting his hair cut. I says to him, William, I was like, you're gonna come back on the show. You're not gonna have any hair, are you, mate? He's like, no, I'm definitely not. So okay, we'll see. But yeah, he's doing that tonight, so he'll be joining us. He'll probably be back on next week for a World Cup 2014 show. But tonight it'll just be myself and Liam flying. Just the two of us, mate. As I said when we did the 96, 97 show, just the two of us, mate. We can make it if we try. So yeah, we will. We'll get into it, Liam. So would you like some trivia to start the show? Would the comments like some trivia? Of course they would. They always do. That's what Bustalgia's all about. Start the show, we get the brain going a wee bit, get the juices flowing up there in the old noggin. And I have got some trivia to get it started. So it's not too bad, I think. There are 7 answers to this one, Liam. Only 7. Not too bad on. So can you name all the goal scorers at Euro 2012 who have scored a goal in a competitive game against us, against Celtic? That's what I'm looking for. There's 7 players at Euro 2012 that scored a goal who have also scored in competitive games against Celtic. So that's all I am looking for tonight in the old Bustalgia trivia.
Okay, one.
Okay, go for it.
Start it. See if I'm right or no. Nicholas Bendtner.
No, Bentner, no. He's a topic of conversation tonight. Nicholas
I
Bentner
know, that's why I was thinking of that one.
He had a very big headline during this tournament. But yeah, we'll get on to Nicholas Bentner. Lord Bentner, I believe he was wanting to be called. I think that was his own thing, where he just had this real high opinion of himself, but he was never that good, was he? But he does have an interesting role to play at Euro 2012. But yeah, let's get into it then. So first half of the show, as usual, we'll take a look at what was going on in the world around about this time when this tournament kicked off. So yeah, the year 2012 we're landing in. I don't believe we've done 2012 at any point so far in Bustalgia. We haven't been here in the Celtic years. We did the 2011-2012 season, but the show would start in 2011, so we haven't actually addressed any of the headlines and the football winners in 2012. So yeah, this one, as always, they always start with the big football winners, and the Champions League that year was won by Chelsea, beat Bayern Munich in their own stadium. The cheek of it, Liam, the cheek of it, to roll into Munich and beat Bayern. If I remember correctly, in that final as well, I think Arjen Robben missed a penalty for Bayern during extra time and could have won it then and there, because Thomas Müller scores a very late goal for Bayern in the 90 minutes, like the 86th, 87th minute. And then we're like the last kick of the game, it's a corner to Chelsea, and Didier Drogba just throws himself at that corner. He's like, oh, I always use it as my sort of like go-to example. It's like the get the fuck out the way type of one, where it's like nobody is getting in my way, near post header, powers it in. And yeah, I'm sure in extra time, somebody will probably tell me in chat, but I'm sure Robben had the chance to win it in extra time, missed a penalty, and then of course it did go to a penalty shootout. And Didier Drogba, with what many thought would be his last kick for Chelsea, the fairy tale story for Drogba, he wins the Champions League for them. He would then go, I believe, to Galatasaray, but when Mourinho comes back in a couple of years, he actually brings Drogba back for a year on a free transfer. But we've mentioned him before on the bus, but Drogba was a name that was linked with us around about the time that Larsson's contract was running down. Could you imagine that, Liam? Could you imagine if time would, in an alternative universe, if Didier Drogba had rocked up at Celtic Park as a replacement for Henrik Larsson?
I was at Momo Silla, I think it was his pal, that told him he couldn't get a game for Celtic at one point as well. Said he'd be lucky to crack the lineup. Yeah, I watched that final game here in Vancouver at the Whitecap Stadium. And so with the time difference, all that extra time went into after the game had already started for the Whitecaps. And it was funny. It was like funny walking in 15 minutes into a game with a fully almost empty stadium. Everyone's watching the game on the big screens in the concourse.
I would have. It was a surreal moment then winning that, because again you just think, I mean, Chelsea were a broken team that season. They'd started the season with Villas-Boas as manager, and of course Chelsea being Chelsea, they go and sack him, midway through after a few bad results. Roberto Di Matteo gets the job, ends up winning them the FA Cup and wins them the Champions League, and then in typical Chelsea fashion, rinse and repeat. A few bad results the next season. Don't care if you win the Champions League, off you pop. Abramovich sacked Di Matteo. But yeah, he pulled them through that one. That is the semi-final when they beat Barcelona, when they were really under the cosh, and Fernando Torres went up the park and scored a late equaliser, I believe, to get them through on away goals. And And it might also be the final, I believe, in John Terry, who's also got an interesting talking point tonight. I'm pretty sure this is the one when John Terry, despite being suspended for the final, decided to be that guy, that full kit wanker, and celebrate with the team when they won, and he was still decked out in his full kit, I do believe, even though he wasn't playing that night. It was Frank Lampard that was the captain because Terry was out suspended. So that's where that one comes from, where he was decked out in the full Chelsea gear. Now, what else happened in the major football winners Europa League that year? It was a team that crossed our path in the 2011-12 season. Atletico Madrid picked up the trophy. They beat Athletic Bilbao in an all-Spanish final, Liam, beat them 3-0 in Bucharest. This was where Falcao was probably at the peak of his powers. He scored 2, and Brazilian midfielder Diego scored the other one. Now, in England, the 2012 season, it's an iconic ending, as of course is Manchester City winning the title with probably the last kick of the game, and we get the old Aguero commentary from Martin Tyler. It is a phenomenal moment. Biblical, as Liam Gallagher would say. Watching it as a neutral, like I couldn't believe it. It was, I think Martin Tyler says on commentary as well, you'll drink it in, you'll never see anything like this again. And it was a moment. And the funny bit about it is a guy who we'll be talking about tonight, Mario Balotelli, he only got 1 assist all season, and it was that pass to Aguero to score the goal to win them the league. It was ridiculous the way that ended. You get the image of Joe Hart running around celebrating, of course, our current goalkeeper. But what do you remember of that one, Liam?
I remember there was a time where, I don't know where it was someone online where someone was doing Lego versions of all the like celebrations and goals and all that sort of stuff. I remember seeing it there where it just like, crazy,
Aye, it was a bonkers, because the thing is forgotten as well is the Aguero goal is iconic. Man City were losing 2-1 as soon as stoppage time started. It wasn't 2 each going into stoppage time. They were 2-1 down till I think the 93rd minute, and it's Edin Dzeko equalises, and then they score the winning goal. So they had to score 2 goals in stoppage time. It's a stunning comeback. And say for a neutral, it was just like, that's a pure fairy tale ending. But yeah, Man City, that was the first of their Premier League titles during this era where they're just dominating everything now in England. They really are. They're an absolute machine. But also in England that season, FA Cup, Chelsea won that. Roberto Di Matteo takes Chelsea to the FA Cup final and the Champions League final, wins both and gets sacked. But yeah, they beat Liverpool 2-1 in that final. Drogba, again, the man for the big occasion. He scored the winner that day. Andy Carroll got Liverpool's goal back in that one, but yeah, it was Drogba that scored the winner. And Liverpool didn't come away completely empty-handed that season. They did win the League Cup. It was the only trophy of Kenny Dalglish's second stint as manager. They beat Cardiff City in the final after a 2-2 draw. It went to penalties. Now, 2012 in Scotland. It's an interesting year, to say the least. Did anything big happen in 2012? I wonder. Because, yeah, obviously we've covered this one, 2011-12 season. We've done it on the Celtic years, but we end up winning the title. It's the first of the second 9 in a row in our history. Amazingly, though, despite the position we find ourselves in that season, where our nearest rivals are crippled, to say the least, we don't manage to win any of the other trophies. We blow it. We have a bit of a Hampden hoodoo that begins around about this time, where Hearts beat us in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup with the Joe Ledley handball. He protects his face. We actually equalised the last minute, huffed and puffed away, got that late equaliser. You thought, right, take it to extra time, regroup, we'll beat them. But no, we still gave away a penalty in stoppage time, and many Celtic fans are still haunted by Craig Beattie. The only time that the Hampden running track has ever been made use of during a football game, where he ran behind the goal with his shirt off, and it's like, I can't believe it. The most frustrating bit, Liam, I think I said this at the time when we did the 11-12 show, was I was at Kilmarnock the week before when we won the league comprehensively, 6-0. One of the best performances of the season. We were ruthless that day. And you'd think after doing that, the next week against Hearts at Hampden, we'll just steamroller them. We'll go on and win the double. It'll be great. But no, man, we were just... It was a sign of things to come, I think, under Lennon and under Dyler, where at Hampden, for some reason, we were just kept on choking at Hampden. There were so many stinking results.
It's almost like we got arrogant for a wee bit, We got arrogance there. And we've seen that reflect later on Neil Lennon's teams, that sometimes they just start celebrating too early.
Aye, just a bit. It was it was a sore one to take that day. And of course, we didn't just lose the Scottish Cup as well at Hampden in that semi-final. We also lost the League Cup that season as well. We were in the final against Kilmarnock, and somehow we conspired to lose that game as well. They scored a goal with about 10 minutes to go. I remember it. I mean, the boy that scores was a Belgian striker that they had on. Don't ask me to pronounce his name. I can't remember. There's many, many syllables in this name. All I remember is he was only there for 6 months. He scored 2 goals in his Kilmarnock career, and one of them is a winning goal in a cup final against us. And yeah, I'm haunted by the break that they have down the left wing. Guy crosses it at the back post, and Kelvin Wilson just does not look arsed at all. Pure gives up on his man. The guy heads it in, and Wilson's just like, doesn't even seem that flustered. And it's like, we've lost a goal with about 9-10 minutes to go. We need to get back in this. And of course, there was the image right at the end when Anthony Stokes weaved his way into the box. All he had to do was shoot. And I think he took a dive to try and win a penalty. And I can remember at full time, Victor Wanyama was squaring up to him. Like, what were you thinking? You know, it was like all you had to do was shoot. But no, he tried to win a penalty. And I say, if his own teammate is arguing with him at the full time whistle, then it's like, yeah, you know that he's probably taking a wee dive there. But yeah, no. At the end of the day, the winning the league that season was a priority for Celtic. That's what we needed after losing 3 titles on the bounce. We needed to get the title, but just to get a wee thing extra on top of it, we were so close to picking up a double that season, and we blew it. But see, over the next few years, the way things have went since then, I think it's been okay. And the other major leagues around the continent as well, it was Real Madrid picked the title in Spain. Juventus, I'm representing them today. I've got a Juve retro shirt on tonight. They won the league in Italy. Borussia Dortmund were the champions in Germany. In France, this is the first year that the Qatari group have taken over PSG. It's not them that win the league. It's not Monaco. It's not Marseille. It's Montpellier win the league that season. The first year that, you know, PSG have got the big bucks, and no, it was an Olivier Giroud-led Montpellier who won the title in France that year. So he would then go on to sign for Arsenal that summer. But yeah, I remember he was another name, I believe, that was linked to us. And I think Russell's got a plan of us to do a special episode at some point over this break that we're on, where we're going to talk about players that were linked to us, because some of the names, Liam, along the way that have been strongly linked with Celtic and never signed, and we're going to look at how their career panned out. Safe to say, though, Giroud's career, he did all right after no coming to Celtic, didn't he? But yeah, he wins the league that year with Montpellier and gets moved to Arsenal.
Sorry, John. Sorry, I was looking at the phone there. I'll just take care of work thing. I'll be back in a minute.
All right, no worries. I'll just continue on with just running through the winners then. That's not a problem. So yeah, in Portugal, it won't surprise anybody to hear that Porto won the title there. And again, the Netherlands, it was Ajax once again. It's very much always Ajax. The last show we did, it was FC20 that picked up the title in Holland. So that was a real break from tradition there. But something that isn't a break from tradition is the Ballon d'Or winners at this time as well. It's either one or the other, and in this case, it was another back-to-back for Lionel Messi, because in the last show we did, he was a winner in 2009, and he was a winner in 2010, and in 2011 and 2012, it was Lionel Messi again both times, so he is on a mad run, just holding that Ballon d'Or himself. But yeah, I did briefly gloss over it there, but we'll just quickly go back to it, Liam. 2012, Rangers, the situation there. I say we've done this episode. We've in the 2011-12, if you've not seen it, you can go back and watch it. We talk about it in more depth. But yeah, it was quite an eventful one from a Celtic point of view when that news came through, wasn't it?
Mixed emotions. It was one thing.
Mixed.
I don't know if it was like just outright ecstatic or half not delirious.
Yeah, it was quite surreal. I mean, it was. Aye.
No, but I think it was. Like in retrospect, I thought it was an opportunity. This is a chance where we can redefine our football club. Mm-hmm. Like we can advance, so we can start working on our infrastructure, our model. Yeah. And not because they're not there like that. We can do it with them there, but there's no excuse not to now, because we've got an advantage over a lot of the other teams. So it'd be a good time to invest that, and good for Scottish football and ourselves and all that.
I will just never ever forget though the scenes outside their ground on Valentine's Day that year, all over Sky Sports News. Craig White comes out and very quickly goes through the statement that he's had prepared. He's got a piece of paper. He just mumbles his way through it as quickly as possible while he's getting all sorts of pelters from many angry bears shouting at him. And then he just quickly runs back inside, and then there's all the interviews with all the guys in Edmondson Drive. They're like, the guy with the blonde hair, he's like upsetting. He's like, oh, tears in his eyes. It's hilarious how he does it. And of course, there's the guy out front saying, the big house must stay open. It's just iconic stuff. And then you had the John Brown rant on the front door at Ibrox. Show us the title deeds, Mr. White, and all that stuff.
I always wondered where that came from, that thing. But God, that's just, I mean, they're passionate, you know. And I know they come across as angry and all that and stuff like that, but we would have been able to film just as many people going through the same emotions and that. I mean, imagine a club dying. I mean, it'd be tragic. You see it more here in North America where teams will move cities.
Yeah, that's right. Franchises, they can just...
You know, and it's like, I know guys that used to support Winnipeg or Quebec Nordiques and stuff like that. There used to be a basketball team here in Vancouver, you know, the Grizzlies. And and stuff like that. And it's people get emotionally invested in stuff like that. So, big house has to stay open for some people, right?
It's weird because I do follow like the NFL when it comes to American sports, and I know that, like, for instance, the Oakland Raiders then became the LA Raiders again, and now they're the Las Vegas Raiders, and the San Diego Chargers are now the Los Angeles Chargers. The St. Louis Rams moved to LA, and it's like, it must be so weird if you're a fan. I mean, the only thing that on this side of the Atlantic with our football that I can think of where a team has literally picked up and moved was Wimbledon became Milton Keynes Dons in the mid-2000s, where they basically liquidated Wimbledon and took the assets and relocated to Milton Keynes and renamed the team. And then from the ashes of that, AFC Wimbledon sprouted up, and now I think both of them are either in the same division or Wimbledon are above MK Dons. But it's the only one I can think of in the UK where that's happened, because it's a very American thing where sports teams can just say, do you know what, we're going to another city, just up sticks and go.
That was one of the models that, you know, a lot of people were talking about, you know, on the boards and all that back then, and, you know, the late 2000s and all that, was different ways when we wanted to get to the Scottish League, maybe play in the English League. Those were sort of the models we were looking at. You know, what happens if we buy, I don't know, was it Wimbledon?
It was Wimbledon, the Trojan horse. Yeah, we were talking about a Trojan horse.
We do that, and we build that up for the inside.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know, there's always ways around that. You know, they could still do that. I think, you know, they do it with football teams as well. You know?
I could do that. I mean, up here on the screen, I've got Jack Gallagher's comment. He's asking what episode was this discussed in full. So if you go onto the channel, look at the playlist in Bustalgia, Jack, there is season 2011, 2012. We've done that one somewhere along the way. It's a good one. It's myself, Liam, and both Boyces are on. Russell and Jonathan were on. It was a packed bus that night. But yeah, very, very eventful one, talking about 2011-12 season. It's in amongst there. So yeah, definitely check that out when you can, Jack. Now we'll quickly move on to some pop culture and news headlines. So as I normally do, what was number one in the charts and so on when this tournament kicked off. So it was the 8th of June 2012 when the Euro 2012 kicked off, and it was the song We Are Young by the band called Fun, which I always find really interesting. The song ends in young and fun, and it rhymes. I remember I can remember that tune at the time, but it was number one in the chart. Gary Barlow was number one in the album chart. How did that happen? And number one at the box office was the prequel to the Alien franchise, Prometheus. You ever seen Prometheus?
I love Prometheus. It's very good. Ridley Scott.
Okay. It's I like the Alien franchise films. Like the first one is a classic, and I love Aliens. The second one, the third one, it's okay, it's passable, but after that, it kind of goes a bit off the rails, a bit like the Terminator series, where it starts really good. The first two films are good, then after that, it just gets a bit all over the place. But yeah, Prometheus, I've seen that, and there was another one they did. Was it Alien Covenant, which is like a sequel to Prometheus, but still falls before the first Alien film. So I've seen those ones, but I've not seen Prometheus. I've seen Alien Covenant though.
Seen Alien versus Predator?
Unfortunately, yes, and I've seen Alien versus Predator Requiem as well, and they are Alien vs Predator was okay, but Alien vs Predator Requiem, oh no, thank you, man.
There's a new one as well. There's a new Predator one where he's against all these like Native Americans. I tried. Aye.
Oh
it was like
no.
Just in the street here.
Hollywood's running out of ideas, man. Just stop it. Stop running Predator, Alien, Terminator, all these other things. Stop running them into the ground. Leave them be. Leave the memories alone, man. Music-wise, though, festivals, what was going on? Well, Glastonbury, nothing was going on because Glastonbury took a year off in 2012. That was actually due to the Olympics happening in London, England that summer as well. But Tea in the Park still went ahead. It was headlined by Snow Patrol, the Stone Roses, and Kasabian across the 3 nights. Other big names who appeared include Noel Gallagher and his High Flying Birds, Kaiser Chiefs, The Darkness, Simple Minds, Elbow, Chasing Status, New Order, Calvin Harris, The Cortinas, David Guetta, and Happy Mondays all appeared. And speaking of the London 2012 Olympics, I just mentioned there, it was actually a phenomenal games for the British team, and the Scottish ones in particular, who had a big one was Andy Murray. He won the gold medal there. It was actually held at Wimbledon. They played the finals there because people have got this vision in their head that Andy Murray winning Wimbledon in 2012, but it's actually the Olympic final. He beat Roger Federer in that final. He wouldn't win Wimbledon until 2016, but he does win the US Open this year. That was his first Grand Slam. First time that a male player had won a Grand Slam since 1936. But yeah, Andy Murray had a good 2012, picking up the US Open, so he gets an Olympic gold medal. Also, Chris Hoy, he wins gold for the British team, and I say he's a Scottish representative. And Michael Jameson, he won a gold medal in the swimming. Other headlines as well from 2012. Austrian skydiver, daredevil, and base jumper Felix Baumgartner made history by performing the world's largest skydive. He was literally on the edge of space, jumping out of a Red Bull-sponsored air balloon, high-altitude one. He jumped from a whopping, wait for this, eye-watering 38,969.4 meters, which is 127,852 feet. Yes, I did obviously beat that off a note here. I did not remember that one off the top of my head. Yeah, my God, like I can remember that being broadcast live, and that, honestly, I can't even imagine what was, going through your head when you're jumping. Imagine like the shoot didn't work or something. Oh my God, like the fear running through me was like, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I know there's people out there that live for thrill seeking like that, Liam, but geez, oh man, that's terrifying.
You don't want to be the guy that has to change his spacesuit, do you?
No, you definitely do not. You definitely don't. No, thank you.
That was unbelievable. I watched that as well, live here, and one, I liked the way it just sort of came up. There was no big build-up. I heard about it that weekend.
Aye, same.
You know what I mean? It wasn't a thing that I knew about for ages and that.
Yeah.
It just sort of, this guy's jumping at a thing. I managed to get online and watch it all at the same time.
Aye, it's not like a space launch or something where they'll build it up and it's a big TV event. It just kind of snuck up out of nowhere. And do you know what else snuck up out of nowhere? Because we're in the social media day and age at this point. Do you remember hashtag Coney 2012?
Honestly, I do remember that, but I can't remember what it was. Was it something about a gorilla?
Yeah, it was in Uganda. It was Joseph Kony. He was like an army general. If I remember correctly, he's like a evil dictator of some kind. And this viral campaign came out of nowhere in 2012. Hashtag, it was literally overnight. It just came out of nowhere. You go on Twitter, everyone's posting these posters. Hashtag 2012, Kony 2012. And it's like, what is this? And it was like all these videos were going around. They're like, all the crimes that this guy's committed over the years. And it was so weird. But as far as I know, nothing ever came of it. It was like nothing ever happened. There were people in the chat will probably remember Coney 2012. I say it vaguely rings a bell in my head when I was looking through headlines. 2012, and I was like, I remember that. That was the first big, like, Twitter viral campaign, because Twitter launched in about 2008, 2009. But this was the first one, aye.
See, it was hard back then because everybody was trying to do a viral. Every advertiser say everybody wanted a viral campaign that, that's all we were watching at the time. There was big campaigns that everybody was seeing, and then you were finding out later that they're all set up, like the brides there, the lassie with their hair and all that. That was an acting trip for Toronto. They ended up getting done for that, for misleading the public. But I don't know if Coney was one of them or not as well, but it just shows you at that point the reach and powerfulness of like YouTube and the internet of how you get a message across really quick that wasn't through mainstream channels.
Just came out of nowhere. It was so bad. I say, as far as I know, nothing ever happened. And I don't know if somebody was just taking the piss earlier this year, but somebody tried to start like a Corey 2022 campaign. And I'm like, wait a minute. After all that in 2012, you're telling me he's still out there committing all these crimes? I was like, I don't know about that. But yeah, I can remember that quite surreal moment where the first ever viral campaign that I can remember on Twitter and social media. It's a strange time. And also, strange time, 2012, a lot of people had it in their heads that the world was going to end in 2012. They even did a blockbuster Hollywood film about it as well, 2012. But contrary to all of that, no, the world definitely didn't end. Even though the last few years, you'd think it at times with the way things have went, with some of the madness that's happened in the world and some of the people that have come to power and some of the mad events that have happened. It's been a crazy few years. But yeah, in 2012, there was some sort of, was it an ancient like prophecy or something? One of these like Nostradamus type things where it was like 2012, the world will end, and it's like, oh, here we are. So, and then there was a one in 2000 where when the millennium bug and it was going to end everything as well, and oh well, here we are, still hanging in there. So yeah, it did not end that year. And say lucky it didn't. We wouldn't be here right now, Liam, talking to each other on the Boise bus. So it's a good.
There was one in 76 as well.
Was it 176? Oh, Jesus Christ.
It was 74, 76. We're a bit there as well. That was the big one. I think we knew Jehovah Witnesses in, and that was part of their prophecy. And they were telling us that was going to happen and the world was ending at that point. And I don't know. I'm sure all this stuff is metaphorically, you know.
I know. The thing is, it's one of the things that if it did happen, they can't exactly say, told you so. Well, I'd be dead. So, unfortunately, that's a morbid way of looking at it, but it's true. They can't exactly go, told you it was going to happen. Well,
somebody's got a warehouse full of end of the world t-shirts.
God,
can't you wait to sell them at the next one?
Oh man, yeah, there'll be another one coming along soon, no doubt about it. Some prophecy somewhere. But anyway, we'll now move on because last week, as I did for the 2010 World Cup, was there any Celtic connections at this tournament that we need to keep an eye out for? Of course there was. Once again, Georgios Samaras, he was going along with Greece. He'd actually scored a goal at the tournament as well against Germany. It's like the only contribution he had. Greece weren't exactly the best team at the tournament, but they snuck through and gave Germany a wee fright before they went up the gears. But yeah, Georgios Samaras and Mikael Lustig had gone along with Sweden. At this point in time, Mikael Lustig had only been with Celtic for about 6 months. It's crazy when you think about how long he was with us in the end, became part of the furniture in the end at Celtic. And Darren Adee went on the Republic of Ireland squad. He's still listed as a Celtic player, but I'm quite convinced at this point, Liam, that Darren Adee was definitely on the way. I don't remember him being like a prominent part of the Celtic team around about Lennon's second season, but he's still listed as he was a Celtic player, so maybe he'd been out on loan and came back to us.
He showed up in Toronto for a couple of years. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he went over and he played with Toronto FC.
Okay. Right.
I've been where he was since. Not dropped off the face of the world, but you can't see the face it for there.
Because he ends up in Ukraine playing at some point as well, which is relative to tonight because we're doing obviously the Poland and Ukraine tournament, but yeah, he ends up playing for a team in Ukraine that's not Shakhtar, not Dynamo Kiev, it's not even like Dnipro or anything. It's like a really like unheard of team, and it's like, wow, how's his career took him to that one? It's like when Anthony Stokes turned up playing in Iran. It's like, how did that happen? Well, where did that one come from? But yeah, Darren Adee is listed as a Celtic player that went there. And also, hilariously enough, and I don't know how this could be claimed, but when I went on Wikipedia, it did say there were 4 Celtic players at this tournament. The much maligned Pavel Brožek was at this tournament with Poland. He joined us on loan in January 2012 and played about 3 games, barely kicked a ball, didn't score a goal. I think we've mentioned him before on the show, and Russell was right on Football Manager at the time. Pavel Brožek was one of those like unearthing a gem on Football Manager. So when we signed him, it was like, oh, man, Pavel Brožek, he's amazing in Football Manager. He barely got a game. But yeah, he did actually go with the Polish national team at this tournament. And of course, the Republic of Ireland have qualified for this tournament, Liam. So there's a whole array of players in the Republic of Ireland team who have got a wee connection to Celtic. Shea Given was on our books long before he joined us at Blackburn. He was at, but yeah, as a young player, he was with us. Robbie Keane also had a loan spell with us under Tony Mowbray just a couple of years before. Aidan McGeady, who of course was from 2005 through to 2011. He was with Celtic. Damien Duff, who would, of course, become a coach at Celtic in the future, but well-known Celtic fan as well, would come up here and attend games with Shay Given and Stephen Carr on the regular. And also, James McLean, massive Celtic fan, was in the squad. Interestingly enough, James McCarthy wasn't in this Ireland squad. I fully expected to see his name when I was going down here. So I'm going to put it down to he was probably injured, wasn't he?
Oh, that's cool. That's
Got to be. Here's a Brown Warwicker request. I think you've mentioned this before. Did Mo Johnson work out in Canada as a manager for a few years, Liam?
Toronto FC. I ran into him one night and I was wearing a Celtic trackie and big badge on it. He goes, "I like your trackie." And I went, "No, I'm not leaving it around you."
Aye, exactly. That's interesting. Said that. What would you have said if it was a Rangers fan? Would you also say to him, "I like your trackie"? You'll play both sides.
Yeah.
Does he watch with us?
He seemed all right though. I mean,
yeah.
He was with Tommy Burns as kid.
Aye, I remember you mentioning that when what episode was it? We brought it up. We did it in a Bustalgia Tour just a few weeks ago. We brought this up out of nowhere. It just came the story about it.
About Tommy Burns.
It was. We're doing Tommy Burns season 96-97. That's right.
Aye, but how well regarded he was by teammates, opponents, everything, you know.
Yeah. I remember that one. It was that one now, 96-97 one. Now, also last week as well, when I did the Celtic connection, I said, is there any future Celtic players we need to look out for this tournament? Well, yes, there was. Again, somebody who's got a very prominent role, a very meme-worthy role, shall we say. England goalkeeper Joe Hart is obviously now the Celtic goalkeeper, but yeah, he's England's number one at this point in time, and he is going to have a very the end of his tournament is going to as a meme-worthy is the best way to describe it, with the way Andrea Pirlo absolutely does him like a kipper with that Panenka penalty, where he does everything in his power to put Pirlo off, pulling all these daft faces, dancing around in the line, and Pirlo, cool as you like, just dinks it down the middle. No problem, but we'll get to England and their campaign in a little while. Let's now do a little pre-tournament roundup, and as I usually do at this point, this is the bit where we usually analyse how did it all go wrong for Scotland, because, yep, we're still very much in that stage where Scotland don't qualify for tournaments, but first, before we get there, a wee bit of pop culture that we always look at this point in time is the Nike ad, because every time a tournament rolls around, the Nike ad is always like a big thing, similar to like John Lewis Christmas ads. It's like, what are Nike going to do for the tournament? So this one was their My Time Is Now campaign, and the premise of it is Holland are playing France in a game, and it gets invaded by all sorts of, I guess you could say, fans, essentially, because it's their time. Their time is now, after all, and it turns into a massive like battle on the park with about 100 players on each side. But some of the big names that appeared, I say big names, but what I found interesting putting this list together is when you compare it to Nike adverts of the past, it's like, I know at the time in 2012, you're like, oh, these are top-end players, but just pales in comparison. So you've got like Gregory Van der Wiel, Wesley Sneijder, Hugo Lloris, Pep Guardiola, he's sitting in the crowd, Kevin Strootman, Rafael van der Vaart, Mamadou Sakho, Jan Envia, Frank Ribery, Cristiano Ronaldo, Mesut Ozil, Mario Götze, Javier Hernandez, Gerard Piqué, Andres Iniesta, Laurent Blanc makes an appearance. He's the manager of France in it. Neymar, even though this is an advert for the Euros, we've got, Javier Hernandez appeared, Neymar appears, and so does Alexandra Pato. And it just turns into a big, massive battle. But yeah, compared to the one last week, Liam, that we watched for the South Africa 2010 one, so you can see a bit of a dip in the level of player. I know at the time, Holland, Van der Wiel was the right back, Kevin Strootman was a midfield enforcer, but you could see a sort of dip in the quality of these type of players compared to Nike adverts of years gone past.
Well, there was other brands competing for the same attention. So Adidas, Reebok at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We were Reebok at that time as well. They were trying to make an imprint into football.
Yep.
And I thought it was a poor effort compared to the one they had before. They had a concept that worked. Here's what you'd be doing if you didn't play football. The sliding doors one.
Yep.
This one, it was just pure fluff. It was all about treatment. They made it try to look John Woo style and then added many bodies and special effects.
Pretty much.
Then they got the same, I think it looks like they got the same editor to edit it because it's a lot of the same cutting points and B-roll stuff in the other one. It's all very similar. It looks like they were trying to save it by making it look more like the other one. And anyway, still, it's all right, but
Aye, they're getting progressively like worse as you go along, even though the production quality might be getting better compared to the 90s ones and the early 2000s. Because for me, the best one is still the cage football for the 2002 World Cup, where they're playing games of 3-a-side. That one's a classic, and there's no fancy CGI or anything. It's literally they got the 24 players together, divided up into 8 teams of 3, and just had them play. And there's like, I say no graphics involved. It's just like just watching them play and do all their skill moves, and it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, that advert.
The Coliseum.
Oh, the Coliseum is that where McCantner puts the collar up.
Brilliant, and he takes on the demon, bursts the ball right through him. I think that's Ridley Scott, by the way. So,
man, that's the second time he's been mentioned tonight. Ridley Scott. Fantastic. Yeah, I remember that one. I think that's like Euro 96 or something like that. It's way back in the 90s, anyway, like Maldini and stuff's all in it, and that's the devil. Aye, and he's like au revoir, and kicks the ball right through him. Phenomenal. But yeah, I notice that Cantona doesn't make appearances in these adverts now when we're getting up to this stage, so it's like, it's Eric, he's always like a staple of these things, having a wee cameo in the background, but now he's nowhere to be seen. Now, let's have a wee look as to why Scotland didn't qualify. And, oh boy, the last one, it was George Burley's Scotland, and we blew it because we'd missed a sitter against Norway in the home game. Chris Iwelumo missing that one right on the line, scuffed it. And we found ourselves in a position where it came to the last game. We had to beat Holland. Obviously, we didn't, and we finished way off the pace. But hilariously, had Scotland actually got 13 points in that 2010 qualifier, we would have got a playoff spot, but we didn't. We missed out on it. We that one win that we didn't get against Norway. But 2012, see, George Burley's now gone. He got the vote of confidence after that campaign, and then got sacked 2 months later after losing a friendly to Wales. Craig Levine is now the Scotland manager, and Spain must have got this idea off of him, because in this tournament they don't play for a forward. But I think the reasons Craig Levine did it are very different to the reasons why Vincent Del Bosque did it. But yeah, we go to the Czech Republic for a game. He doesn't field an out-and-out striker, and the graphic literally comes up on the I think BBC were covering it that night, and it was literally like 4-6 midfielders and nobody up front. We tried to just play for a draw. And of course, the problem with that is we don't recognise striker. If Czech Republic do score, shit, what do we do now? But Liam, do you remember the horror of that one, the 4-6-0 formation?
I mean, it's almost a meme now, right? For incompetency. When anybody wants to talk some of the most ridiculous things you've ever seen, that will always be brought up. And they don't care what else he did, but he actually fielded a team not to win a game. It's not the line rampant. That's no Scottish football. It's not what, I don't know. How just these people that fall up, how do guys like that get the gig? He never done anything exceptional at Hearts.
No, I know. It was aye.
I only remember him for punching somebody in his own team. It was a haymaker.
I've seen that clip. Yeah,
Willie McVie or something like that.
Aye.
I don't remember him being an exceptional manager or football, like any quotes or something. I can't understand the game. No, he just keeps dry and drab and no personality. And that's how you expect a 0-6-4 to play,
It's almost too Scottish for its own good. It's like this is so Scotland. This is the type of thing we would do. The thing that I always remember from that campaign is one of the early games in it, we were playing Luxembourg at home. They were in our group, and obviously Luxembourg are one of those teams that are always like, the bottom runs of the group. They'll always finish 5th or 6th. And so you're like, okay, we're at home, we're at hand. This has got to be a 3 points for Scotland. We can't be dropping points to Luxembourg. And we took the lead. I think Kenny Miller put us ahead, and then they equalised with a bit of a wonder goal. So I was doing the pub watching this with my mate. I remember this, and it went to the 97th minute, and Stephen McManus scored for us. And the look of relief on Craig Levine's face, that wasn't a guy that was just happy because the buzz of winning a game. That was a man that was relieved more than anything, because he knew he dropped points to Luxembourg. And that was one of the early games in the qualifying campaign. It's like you couldn't get off to a worse start. You got a home game with the bottom seeded team, and you couldn't even beat them. But we got a 97th minute winner. Stephen McManus scored. But that just summed up then the 4-6-0 formation. yeah, just encapsulated Craig Levine's time. He won't last much longer as Scotland manager. By the time we go to talk about the 2014 World Cup next week, I believe Gordon Strachan's in place halfway through the qualifying campaign there. So, yeah, we seem to do that with Scotland managers over the years after Craig Brown left, where we would give them X amount of time and we'd always get rid of them midway through a campaign, and then they would have a strong finish to the campaign, and then it'd be too late then. And then when they start the next one, it starts badly and we never recover. So it's a rinse and repeat exercise with the Scottish national team. But Liam, here's a strange thing about this pre-tournament roundup. England were in a bit of dismay going at this tournament. Usually England qualify no problem. And you could say, yeah, they did qualify no problem. But something happened domestically for England going into this tournament that led to an absolute shitstorm of the highest order, and their manager even resigned in protest over it. So during the 2011-12 season, in a league game between QPR and Chelsea at Loftus Road, John Terry and Anton Ferdinand got into, shall we say, a disagreement, is probably the politest way to put it. And John Terry said some quite unsavoury things to Anton Ferdinand, who of course is black. And of course, he's racially abused him, as the story goes. And when you look at the lip reading, if you're a lip reader, you can see he says something quite unsavoury there. It obviously causes all sorts of shitstorm. And this is the thing, John Terry is the England team captain at this stage. Not only is he Chelsea captain, he's the England team captain. And obviously he's drawn into this. And the FA decide they're going to strip John Terry of the England captaincy. Rightfully so. I mean, at the end of the day, if he's embroiled in this, probably shouldn't even play for the national team, given, it's the national team. It's meant to be that figurehead for the country to bring them together. You've got a guy who's tied up in a racism vow. But Fabio Capello, the England manager, did not like this decision by the FA and did an interview with Italian press when he was over there and said that he didn't agree with a sports body punishing a player before it's actually been through the courts, because the court case was actually scheduled for July 2012. So it was after the tournament had finished. And in amongst all the fallout from it, after a meeting with the FA, Fabio Capello resigned as England manager and they appointed Roy Hodgson. We talk about Gareth Southgate being a sort of uninspiring type guy, even though Southgate does seem to get some good results for them. Whether it's down to luck or not, who knows? But Jesus, man, Roy Hodgson, mate. But what an absolute shit. It's this whole thing, because it obviously has a knock-on effect, because Rio Ferdinand, who's still playing at this point for Man U, still got a couple of years left in it. He's left out of the England squad because of the fallout of this, because he don't want to play alongside John Terry. The story was given that Ferdinand wasn't picked because he was injury prone that season, and he was 33-year-old. And it's like, well, read between the lines here. We can kind of see what's going on, but do you remember all of that madness with the John Terry, Anton Ferdinand fallout?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Capello, him resigning over that, yeah, I guess it's a technicality, but it's not really a moral technicality. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, if you want to split hairs, he's not had the trial, but I've never seen the footage, none of that here and that wasn't broadcast as widely. If you've got a good idea, that's what the guy's saying and all that, then you don't need to wait for a trial. You can make a point to the other players in your team or people that might feel marginalised like that and say, listen, make a moral point here, like, listen, don't tolerate this. John was wrong in what he did and all that, and he's going to win a World Cup because of it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so let's pull up. It's the right thing to do as a team. Mm-hmm. Good there,
Aye.
But I don't know. I mean, to resign over that.
Aye. I don't know. Maybe Capello was looking for a way out, because obviously he'd got a lot of the same treatment that Sven was getting before that, where I think deep down, I think the FA wanted to go with the foreign coach idea, but I don't think the English media were always too thrilled of a foreigner running the country, because, obviously McLaren got it pretty tight because of how he failed against Croatia, but Southgate's had it pretty good. So even Roy Hodgson, to a degree, didn't get. I mean, he was always never seen as a very thrilling manager, but he didn't get any sort of real abuse from the newspapers. But it felt like with Sven and Fabio Capello, but the English media for some reason just like to sabotage their own team. I don't know what it is, but maybe Capello just saw it as a way out, because he stood by obviously stood by John Terry in this one, even though the punishment seemed to be, we're taking the captaincy off you, but you can still play for the England team. You can still go to the tournament. I say the knock-on effect of that is, well, Rio Ferdinand's now kind of like, I'm not playing. He racially abused my little brother. It's like, I'm not playing alongside him. And Rio Ferdinand, was easily one of the best centre-backs of that generation. So it kind of a bit of, well, I say we'll get to John Terry during the tournament. He does have a big moment, but yeah, it was quite a weird time to see England in a bit of disarray, just like 4 months before the tournament kicked off. It was nice to see them having a few problems rather than just us getting all the problems in the run up to the tournament. So it was a welcome change.
Well, this was already being talked about before the tournament as well. There was that panorama thing that one of the things that happened in this Euros, I guess what we were leading up to, racism was front and centre. There was a lot of conversation about that, of it being in Ukraine and Poland, about far right groups making monkey noises and things like that. And Spain didn't have a great record at the time. And
that's
Croatia, right. I think Croatia actually ended up getting behind closed door games for when they played Italy and making monkey noises and stuff, right? So I mean, this is, I think, where you started seeing a lot of racism coming into it, or at least the conversations around racism starting. Is it at this Euros,
right? Because this is something that comes up a lot, and it always seems like England seem to be the ones that get embroiled in this. They'll go and play a qualifier in somewhere in Eastern Europe, somewhere that used to be part of the Iron Curtain, and that will usually happen. So say at that time, like Theo Walcott would be an example of a player that was playing at that time, and they'd come back and they'd be taught about, he was racially abused, there was monkey noises coming from the fans, the Serbian fans or whatever, whoever they were playing, Serbia, Moldova, so any of these type of countries, it's always one of these Eastern European ones. And the calls are always things like, well, these teams need to be kicked out of the qualify and they need to be deducted points, and UEFA would hum and haw over it and would just eventually come to the conclusion, we'll just give them a fine, a wee slap on the wrist. Occasionally you might get a game that will get played behind closed doors, but never anything to the point where the fans will actually realise we've just got our team kicked out of the tournament. And I think one of the big reasons why is there's other big mainstream countries that have got a lot of racism problems. You just mentioned Spain there. I remember England playing Spain in a friendly in the 2000s, and there was issues with that. Italy, we'll talk about Mario Balotelli tonight. He got a lot of abuse off of his own fans because of his skin colour. And also, the cheek of it, even I used them as the example, England. I remember the Chelsea fans that were pushing the guy off of the metro in Paris and taunting him and making monkey noises at him. And it's like, so I think deep down UEFA and FIFA know if we were to say kick Moldova or Serbia or Macedonia, one of these type of countries out for any sort of racial abuse, then they've got to do it for a big team if it happens. And the fear of one of these big teams not qualifying for their tournaments, I think they're like, no, we need the big teams. We need them. We can't be kicking England out of a tournament or kicking Spain out of a tournament. We need these big teams here. So I think that's part of the reason why they always just kind of mull over it and go, there's a wee €80,000 fine and a game behind closed doors. That's the end of the matter. Sweep it under the carpet. That's what it feels like to me.
Well, I mean, that's it. As soon as you start getting, looking at big teams and cancelling them out of big tournaments, all that marketing money that, we were talking about, the Ballon d'Or and how much Nike and Adidas influence that. Well, I think it's the same thing as well. If you're on the front cover of, FIFA football, that, Euro 96 of that, and, which was at Spain, and your team's getting kicked out for chanting and stuff like that. You've now got an advertiser that's wanting to know, okay, well, what's going on, and, be looking for, money or something like that from you, or at least some sort of accountability. I think this is where we started to see ugly side of football. I mean, we'll get it. I mean, I don't even think the football was that good in this tournament till later on.
It was compared to. I mean, I didn't touch on this last week, but I did feel that with the South Africa World Cup, every team wanted to play this new 4-2-3-1 formation, which seemed a bit overly secure. So there was a lot of games that just felt like both teams were like trying just not to lose rather than win the game. I felt like Euro 2012 kind of came on cleansed that a wee bit to a degree, but it wasn't a perfect tournament. But we'll obviously get into it in a little while, the crux of it. Now, before we do, obviously it is a dual hosted tournament between Poland and the Ukraine. The host cities for this one, here we go. This is always favourite bit, try to pronounce these right. So Warsaw, I know how to pronounce that. That's easy.
Warsaw.
Gdansk, Poznan. Now, there's a city here, and it's Wroclaw. It looks like Wroclaw, but I bet it's not pronounced as Wroclaw. And it definitely will not be pronounced that way, so I apologise for butchering that one. But it was something like Wroclaw or something like that. There was like a V or something in there that you can't. It was something like that. But the cities in the Ukraine are a bit easier to pronounce. Kiev, Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Lviv. And obviously, yeah, as I say, they're easy to pronounce because the Ukraine is very, very topical at the moment because safe to say that at this point in time, it's much, much better times than what's going on currently in the Ukraine. But yeah, that's the 4 cities in the Ukraine, the 4 in Poland, and that is the 8 cities overall that are hosting. So we're coming up to the hour mark just now, so we've timed that really well again, Liam. So I'll put in the musical break now, whether the intro decides to play up or just be a while with me, who knows. But yeah, we'll be back in about 2 minutes' time, hopefully, and then we will get into Euro 2012, guys. So we'll catch up with you in just a few moments.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.
Happy to report, William, that the intro or the outro, whichever one I ran there, was so smooth. So hopefully StreamYard to fix that. But yeah, I just brought us in slowly there on the video there, just to let people see the background again, the lovely stadium in Warsaw. Beautiful, beautiful skyline there. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into Euro 2012. And well, obviously last week we did the 2010 World Cup, and one of the finalists in that one of the best teams and had one of easily the best players, I argued last week, the best player in the world at that point in time, Wesley Sneijder, was at the heart of their team, the Netherlands. But this tournament didn't quite go according to plan for them because they say almost champs to utter chumps, because Holland did what Holland do best, it seems. Last week I mentioned that at tournaments, France or Holland are always good for an absolute meltdown. And this time, after France had a shocker in 2010, it was Holland's turn to have an absolute shocker. Because, yeah, they didn't even get out the group stage. They didn't even win a game. They had an absolute stinker of a tournament. So let's get into it. So, yeah, Group B. So every time, I always find the Euros, because it's a smaller tournament, so the ratio of good teams, you know, if it's a 16-team tournament compared to the World Cup, which is a 32-team tournament, there's always a chance that you're going to get a group that's really strong. So I feel like the Euros, this happens quite a lot. And in Group B, Euro 2012, we had a group of Germany, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Denmark. Now, of course, to the neutral looking at that, everyone will think, Denmark. They're going to get absolutely ragdolled here. But hey, as we've seen in this World Cup that's going on just now, it doesn't always work out that way. Because, it wouldn't be Denmark that would be finishing bottom of this one. Because in the very first game, they played the Dutch. And a guy named Kroendelli scored the only goal to get them off to an absolute flyer and beat them 1-0. So Denmark's Bert van Marwijk's Danish team off to a shocker of a start in the group of death as after being World Cup finalists. The result they definitely didn't see coming, but in the second game, they're up against Germany. Now, this is an amazing start that's always blown my mind. Because also when a player's out on the park for the 90 minutes, if they're out for the full 90, Liam, they don't touch the ball maybe that often. I think on average it works out that a player is on the ball for maybe 50 seconds during the whole 90 minutes they're out there. It's quite incredible, when you think about it. It doesn't sound that much, but amazingly, at this game, Mario Gomez, who's like Germany's hot prospect to a striker, he's really coming into his own at this point. He only touched the ball for a grand total of 18 seconds in this game, and he scored twice. That's clinical finishing rate, isn't it?
Sounds like a big Greek striker.
Yeah, maybe, aye. A bit of similarity there, aye. But, Holland, they didn't have the best of times there. So Gomez literally gets 2 touches. Not 2 touches, but basically 2 goals from 18 seconds worth of touches. It's an astounding stab. I say Gomez is coming into like his own at this point. He is like the hottest prospect in, the European strikers. But the other game in this group made some interesting headlines, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before the break there with UEFA and FIFA and the whole hypocrisy when it comes to fines and whatnot. So, Nicholas Bendtner of Denmark, he caused a little bit of a stir, to say the least, because in the game against Portugal, he scores a goal against them, and during it, he lifts his shirt up and he unveils this. So there you go. Paddy Power boxer shorts that got it got him into a bit of trouble, Liam, didn't it?
Aye, got suspended for the next game.
Yes.
I mean, don't fuck with UEFA when it comes to sponsorships and stuff like that.
Oh, they're
that was when Paddy Power and goldenpalace.com and all that were like parachuting into fields and all that, and fucking car boot sale advertising.
Yeah, it was a clever because he Bendtner, earlier on we mentioned him. I don't think he was great. He thought he was good. He thought he was up your top end striker. But yeah, he scores 2 goals against Portugal, even though they lose 3-2 there. But during his goal celebration, he unveils this Paddy Power underwear that he's got on. Obviously, a little cheeky sponsor that he had there. He wanted to flaunt the name of them. Now, it turned out that Paddy Power picked up the fine because I feel like UEFA do this. The way the fining system works is they must have a day each month where they go through all the fines that they're going to hand out. Because I've noticed, like, recently when we were in the Champions League, it was like headlines about Celtic have been fined for this banner. And Rangers also get fined. So it must be like on the same day. They just go through. It must have a big stack of papers at the admin offices of UEFA. They go through and decide what they're going to fine. Because on the same day that they fined Nicholas Bendtner, they fined him a whopping €100,000. And they banned him for a game, as you say. And on the same day, they fined the Croatian FA €80,000 for racially abusing players, their fans racially abusing players. So again, what is going on where it's like, no, you can't wear that Paddy Power underwear, that's a €100,000 fine and a ban. Oh, those guys racially abuse black players? 80,000 fine and a game behind closed doors, maybe. And it's like, what is this, Liam? Where is the consistency in this nonsense?
This is UEFA. I mean,
yeah.
There's a whole sort of like skullduggery behind this UEFA as well. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with Ukraine as well. When they were preparing for this World Cup, they didn't think Ukraine had the infrastructure and stuff to actually pull it off. Their economy had shrunk, and suppose like the amount of money that the Ukrainian government was supposed to put into the UEFA, I think they only came up with something like 5% of that. I mean, that was just on a documentary thing I watched, but they didn't. Their stadiums were really bad, and they needed a massive overhaul. And Poland had managed to get all their stadiums brand new and looking great and provide all the proper infrastructure.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, they were having stuff like finding enough hotels and all that to support people. and people were like charging out 3-star hotels for €1,000 a room, and so they had to look at that sort of like, okay, people are trying to gouge, and it was a hard place. It was the very wild west of finances. At that time, Ukrainian was very I think quite corrupt at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2 years after this tournament that the Russians move into the Crimea area in the Donbass region, and the whole annexing of that happens because Shakhtar Donetsk had a brand new stadium built for this tournament, the Donbass Arena, and they only played in it for a few years. I mean, England play some of their group games in Donbass, big brand new facility and everything. And the stories I hear now is because of the war that's been going on there, with all these different shells flying around on missiles and that. The stadium's been damaged to hell now. There's all sorts of structural damage on it, and I can't even imagine what it even looks like now. But you see it at Euro 2012, it's like a brand new stadium, like just freshly out the wrapper, essentially, just built. But yeah, they only got a few years out it, and then they were forced to move to play in Kiev, and now they're playing in Warsaw. When they played us, obviously, in the Champions League this year, they played their games in Poland over the border. So yeah, it was I can remember the Donbass Arena being built for Shakhtar, because when we played them a few years before that in the Champions League, they were still in some old stereotypical behind the Iron Curtain Soviet stadium that still had all the wooden seats and stuff when we played them in like the mid-2000s. But yeah, they got a shiny new stadium, and since then it's obviously been at the centre of what's been going on in the Ukraine and the Donbass region in particular from 2014 onwards. They've not been able to play there. But
I only ever registered Shakhtar because of the Joe Strummer and the Muscalero song, Shakhtar Donetsk.
Okay, I didn't know that. Nice. You see, full of facts here, Liam, man. You've got a lot of facts hidden away, mate. You need to pick that brain of yours, man. Get all those stories out of you, man. But that's another one to add to the list. Something else you can impress people down the pub with there. But yeah, this group, as I say, Denmark, they've surprised people with Paddy power. They've upped UEFA by copying themselves copying Nicholas Bendtner €100,000 fine. €80,000 for racial abuse, so go figure how that works out. But yeah, in the end for the Dutch, it doesn't go well at all. They end up losing 2-1 to Portugal in the final group game, and yeah, they will finish bottoms, as saying, compared to other tournaments. If it's no France, it's having an absolute implosion. It's the Dutch that are having an implosion, and it was their turn this time. But yeah, the Germans and the Portuguese are the ones that are moving on from this group. And despite Denmark's heroics, no, they're not. Bert van Marwijk, no shock, was sacked after this. And remember I mentioned last week, I should have looked this up, but again, it's a weird system that the Dutch managerial hot seat is. It's like a wee rotating thing, but it's like, I think I said it was Ronald Koeman, Dick Advocaat and Louis van Gaal, but I'm also pretty sure that Gus Hiddink finds his way back into the job every so often as well. There seems to be like a wee rotation. In fact, I'll see if I can quickly get that on Wikipedia if it's got it listed on their page of the manager history, because it's been strange the last few years the way that they've went. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah, I've got it here. So we've got Van Marwijk was the manager till June 2012. Obviously, he was sacked after that. And then we've got Louis van Gaal, Hiddink, Danny Blind, Fred Grimm, Dick Advocaat, Koeman, Van Gaal. He's in another stint. Before that, though, it's before Van Gaal is in his fourth stint. Advocaat's had 3 stints. Koeman's had 2. Yeah, Hiddink's had a few as well. It's weird, man. They just rotate a lot of the same guys around. Very, very bizarre the way they do it, but
Peter Lowell approach to
maybe, yeah, he is topical tonight. He is
we'll see if it lands on this time.
Oh, jeez, please don't. After that earlier on, we've said our piece about that one. We'll try and avoid old Peter's name for the rest of the night. But yeah, there's some scary similarities here. Jobs for the boys. Bit of cronyism going on there in the Dutch FA, where a lot of the same guys keep finding their way back into the hot seat. Now, we always like to talk about England and their fortunes, because they qualify for tournaments, we don't. But they always provide some bonkers headlines. There's always some dramatic way that they exit a tournament. Always something going on with England, and yep, paying the penalty, because this is another one of those tournaments, Liam, where it ends in all penalty misery for the English. So let's have a wee look at how they got on. So see, Roy Hodgson's now in charge, and Steven Gerrard is now the captain of England after John Terry had been ousted as captain, but he's still in the England fold, he's allowed to play. So John Terry was included in the squad, despite his court case being scheduled for July. Frank Lampard, Gareth Barry, and Gary Cahill all missed the tournament through injury. They were replaced by Phil Jagielka, Jordan Henderson, and I completely forgot about this one, was even in the England squad. Martin Kelly, who was a Liverpool defender at that point, went on to play for Crystal Palace, I believe, under Hodgson a few years later. So Hodgson must have been a fan. I think we've talked about before how like Sven Goran Eriksson had his favourites in like Darius Vassell and stuff like that. Martin Kelly must have been Roy Hodgson's Darius Vassell, a guy he would just pick. And it's like, how did he find his way into the squad? Wayne Rooney was carrying a suspension going into this tournament, a 2-game suspension, meaning he'd miss the first 2 group games and only be available for the final game against the Ukraine. And that's crucial because, again, he would have a big, big moment to play. Now, I'd say one of the most intriguing storylines is it stopped them from picking Rio Ferdinand, essentially, and what happened to John Terry, because Roy Hodgson put it down to, well, he's had some nagging injuries this season and he's 33 now, but, you know, he's still at a decent level. Man U have still got one more title in them the next season under Alex Ferguson, so he's still playing at a decent level. But yeah, he doesn't go, obviously, due to the fallout with the John Terry stuff. That's clearly the reason behind it, even though they can dress it up how they want. But yeah, England start, though, with a 1-1 draw against France. Julian Lescott puts them ahead before Samir Nasri grabs the equaliser. But the second game is what we would describe on here as an absolute slobber knocker of a game, because they're playing Sweden. And Sweden actually take the lead in this game, despite England going ahead early on. Sweden fight back, and Olaf Mellberg, well, one of them goes down as an own goal, but it's his headers going towards goal. Glenn Johnson bundles it in his own net, and then Mellberg puts them 2-1 up before Andy Carroll and Theo Walcott recover it for them, and they end up winning 3-2. But going into the final game, Wayne Rooney's back. Now, last week, Liam, 2010 World Cup, and it's quite topical because of what happened last night in the 2022 World Cup about balls crossing lines. Now, during the 2010 one, which I said last week, I think is one of the catalysts for what brought in goal line tech and what VAR sort of started from, the calls for it. Also, you had the Frank Lampard goal that crossed the line, clearly did, but the referee and the assistant referee didn't seem to see it, even though everyone else could see it. At this game, with England winning 1-0, Ukraine get a chance late on, and the ball's going into the net, and John Terry, the boy hits it, and his heart saves it, and it loops up, and it's dipping into the net, and John Terry gets back on the line, and he hooks it off the line, or it looks that way. But here's how over the line it was. As you can see, it's definitely in looking at that there. Now, obviously, last night we're hearing all these stories about the whole ball has to be over the line and whatnot. But yeah, that is the angle that we got on the television replays. John Terry hooks it off the line. It's not allowed. And in the end, England go on and win it 1-0. You know what the most weirdest part about it is at the time, after the 2010 one, when Lampard's goal crossed the line and England were really starting to push for some sort of goal line tech of, say, what would become VAR eventually, UEFA and FIFA still weren't in favour of bringing this in yet. But do you remember what the compromise was that they came up with to avoid things like that happening? Do you remember what it was in the meantime? No. 2 more referees, one standing at each goalpost. And in that game, even though it's not in the picture there was a referee standing at that goal line, and somehow, again, didn't see it. So that completely flopped. And by the time we get to the 2018 World Cup was the first time that we get VAR. But the 2014 World Cup, we've got goal line tech. Because I remember that there was a goal that Benzema scores in the 2014 World Cup that hits the post. It goes along the line, and I think it might even hit the other post, and they had to check if it had went in. So they had the Hawkeye goal line tech for that one. So they do bring it in for the next tournament. But after this one, where they bring in another referee, and he misses it. But Liam, here's the question, and we've been linked this to Celtic. When you think about a referee, an extra one, a 5th and 6th official who stand at the goal line, what comes to your mind in a Celtic prism? What incident around about this time, maybe a few years later, comes to your head when you think about a referee that was standing next to a goalpost and completely missed something?
Was that the Ronnie Dyler one in the semi-final, the handball?
It is indeed, yes. Yeah. Have you ever seen any of those referees for the brief period that they did it for a few years? Did you ever see any refs actually make any sort of call, like, regarding that?
None. I mean, if we had Douglas Ross back there, he'd be jumping up and doing like,
Aye.
you know.
Aye.
But no. I always wonder what they're good. I mean, the amount of time that we looked over, it says, well, you know, and you'll see the replay like the one against us. He's looking right at him.
Aye.
Looking right at it. You know, he's watching that and so on. Flag doesn't go up, and I don't know. Maybe it's the referees just say, listen, this is just for show. I'll make the calls. Unless it's this, and tries to intimidate them into, you know, just let me call my end game. You know?
Aye. They were brought in as a compromise just to like help the referee with any instance in the box. And I cannot think of any time I watched a game, whether it was a Champions League, I think they had them in the Europa League as well, where a referee standing behind the goal would make any sort of call to help the referee with an instant in the box. I can remember being at Celtic Park for a European night around about that time, and they had the 5th and the 6th officials there, and before the game, you know, the players are doing their warm-ups, so the referees. So you can understand the actual main referee and his 2 linesmen doing all their running exercises. But I couldn't stop laughing at the 5th and 6th official would do wee sprinting exercises from the corner flag to the goalpost. And I'm like, for what? You literally stand at the goalpost the entire game. There was one referee that turned up at a European game and he had like long johns on under his shorts because he's going to be standing about all game. But before the game, they were doing their little sprinting exercises, and it's like, these guys literally did nothing. Literally nothing. But yeah, the one that always comes back to my mind is the Ronnie Dyler one where it was Andrew Dallas was the one behind the goal and Stephen McLean was the one on the park. Or was it the other way around? But either way, it was that combination. Don't know in what order it was. Somebody in the chat might correct me on that one. But I'm sure it's Andrew Dallas. It's the one behind. And as Monty says that it was Josh Meeking's handball. But yeah, we're in that weird period where UEFA and FIFA still aren't willing to embrace any sort of technology. In the end, though, you can kind of understand the reluctance to it because we're looking at what's happening right now with VAR. And I don't just mean with Scottish football VAR, I just mean in general. This World Cup's had some mad moments as well. The delays in it. You get a goal gets scored. The players don't necessarily celebrate it because they've got to wait to get it verified. Like the boy the other day for Cameroon against Serbia scored that amazing lobbed goal where he was full on goal and he lifted it over the keeper's head. But he couldn't celebrate it because the moment it dropped into the net, there was offside flag goes up because they're taught. The linesmen have been told, I think at Euro 2020, they began doing this where the linesmen were taught that if you're in doubt that it might be offside, let it play out and let it finish the play. And if it's offside, VAR will catch it because they can't put their flag up and then find out it was actually onside because you can't just randomly restart the game from the spot that they decided it was offside. So they need to let it play out. So that's been happening a lot of this World Cup, especially where you've seen goals get scored and is it offside and you need to wait for it to get verified. And it's taking the soul out of the game, isn't it, Liam?
I think it has, but I think you're going to see teams evolving to, just like this game's changing, you'll see teams evolving to take advantage of this stuff. You know, I think there'll be a lot more scattered approach to knocking the ball into the 18-yard line and getting it into the box and play ricochet, you know. The way it's going with handballs and stuff, you know. You see goalkeepers picking goalkeepers now that are penalty specialists because if you got a choice between 2 goalkeepers in World Cup and you know you're going to get all these VAR calls, you know, you're going to have a goalie that's going to have to save penalties now. And then the other thing with offside, you need defenders that are going to be able to play right through the end of the play, so their stamina is going to be different. You know, amount of time as a defender, you're hoping for an offside just to get a breather and all that.
Yeah.
But you're not getting that as well. You're still tracking back and going for the full run. So your older players and unfitter players are going to get, you know, tired faster.
Yep.
And also as well, different anticipation for strikers now. You know, finish everything now, and might lead to more injuries as well. Though, you know, guys making tackles and stuff like that when you know, normally it would have been whistled dead.
I think we saw it in the Saudi Arabia-Argentina game at this World Cup where Saudi Arabia were playing a very high offside line because Argentina got 3 goals disallowed alone in the first half, and it was like, you know, it's Lionel Messi and Lautaro Martinez and Angel Di Maria, and you'd think these guys would be savvy enough to realise they're playing a really high offside line. We need to adapt to that because we've had 3 goals disallowed, and they just didn't seem to bother. And it's like teams are going to start utilising that because, again, there's a whole instruction of the linesmen are told to just let it play out. And if it's offside, VAR is going to catch it anyway. And it's just like, watching that game the other week when it was on, it was so infuriating. It's like the amount of times at Argentina you'd expect with the players they've got, they'd be smart enough to beat this. And it's not. So teams will find ways to utilise that and for it work in their advantage. And here's another thing I know that kind of ties into it, again, just going by the weird changes that they're bringing in. What have you made of the mad stoppage time that they've brought in this World Cup, where it feels like, I think they're adding in things like throw-ins and goal kicks and that are all getting added as well now. What's your opinion on that one?
Well, it makes it hard to sort of figure out, plan your day from the start when you're watching.
Yeah.
I don't know when the game's going to end anymore. There's an extra 10 minutes in the first half and then maybe 12 in the second. I know. Have we went in double figures yet?
Yeah, the England-Iran game had 14 minutes in the first half. Now, there was a head knock to the goalkeeper, but I still don't think it was 14 minutes. But it was one of the games later on where Gary Lineker was on and he explained it and said that, it's now any stoppage is being added. So if the ball goes out of play for a throw-in, a goal kick, a corner, the length of time it takes, because players will utilise that for a bit of time wasting. They might go in they hold the ball out in the corner flag, like think Moussa Dembele at Ibrox in 2016, held the ball in the corner flag every time Rangers players tackled and went out for a corner. So it's like, well, we're in no hurry to take the corner. So you just take your time, go over, pick the ball up, maybe dust a bit of dirt off of it before you put it down on the spot to take the corner. Just wee things like that. I think that's what they're doing to try and combat, because that adds on about 30, 40 seconds, the length of time it can take you to just go and get the ball to set up for a corner. So they're trying to stop things like that. And that's why they're adding on throw-ins now and, say, goal kicks. And it's like, so we've definitely seen double figures. I think it was 14 minutes in the first half of England-Iran, and in the second half, Harry Maguire went off with a head knock that added a lot of time as well. And I think in the end, it was like 24 minutes stoppage time was added across both halves. It's mental. You could get a whole other game out of all the stoppage time we've had so far.
It's like watching hockey. You watch the hockey and it's only the clock runs when the play's on. But then you need to start outfitting football fields with clocks and timers, and just more infrastructure to the game it already can't afford, I have more time getting referees. Never mind one that's stopping the clock and that as well. I don't know, maybe that's the referee does that as well. Could be something where it's right, stop, and he stops and starts the game. It's starting to get that way. I mean, you see the difference when you get Ange trying to play that, like, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
The ball boys are being wee dicks and running about and hiding the balls and all that. And, the stuff that we're starting to see, it's what it'll be like at Ibrox, right? When we go there.
Aye.
So, I don't know. I like seeing a full game of football. I find it really frustrating when teams play out the clock, and maybe this will help sort of change that a bit. And you see more football and teams actually get a chance to win on the park.
Well, in typical Scottish Football Association, tradition, they'll wait a wee while on that one, because remember in 2014 when they brought in the magic spray for the free kicks, for like marking out the free kicks, and it was like, that's a really simple and very good idea, and it took us about 4 years after the 2014 World Cup where Scotland brought it in, like right away. The English Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga, they had that like right away. They're like, that's genius, the vanishing foam, fantastic. It took us years before we brought that in. So, when it comes to this stoppage time thing, it'll be a good few years down the line for the Scottish FA embrace it in any way, shape or form. Look how long it's taken them to bring in VAR. But, of course, VAR had to make an appearance in some way. But see, this is the early embryotic stages now, where I think after this incident with the John Terry one, I think UEFA and FIFA kind of came to the idea that we've got to start embracing technology, and say by the time we get to the 2014 World Cup on next week's show, it's in play, because there's definitely a Benzema goal that he scores against, I think, Honduras, where it goes to Hawkeye, and they have to analyse if it crossed the line or not. So it's definitely in play there. And then VAR is fully in place by the 2018 World Cup. So we're heading towards it now. But in terms of England, I say they will get back on track with them. They've got through the group as they would usually do anyway. They always find a way through. But they've got Italy in the next round. They're playing those savvy Italians. And, of course, I mentioned at the top of the show, It's not Joe Hart's finest hour, so it's meme worthy without a shadow of a doubt. So they draw 0-0. It's not exactly the most thrilling game of football, but a penalty shootout comes along. We know how England absolutely love a penalty shootout. Yeah, it doesn't start too well though. Italy miss one of their early penalties, and they're in a position where England are ahead at that point. And Andrea Pirlo steps up, and it's like he's got to score after Ricardo Montolivo had missed his penalty. Pirlo's got to score here to keep them in it. To give them a wee bit of momentum. And Joe Hart, as I say, he does everything in his power to try and put Pirlo off, jumping around the line, pulling all sorts of face, shouting abuse at him and stuff like that. Andrea Pirlo, the coolest man in the world, Liam. Oh, well, the second coolest man after yourself, obviously. He just his shoulders, just like whatever. It just dinks it down the middle. It was a phenomenal moment, wasn't it?
I loved him then. He had some tournament at that point as well. He was the coolest man on the planet at that point, wasn't he?
Brilliant.
He was like the Dos Equis guy in football. That's what I loved. Italy was my team in that tournament, so I enjoyed that. By the way, my Bulgarian nephew or cousin, he ran into him in Italy earlier this year, him and his wife, and he's a Juventus fan. He's the biggest Pirlo fan out there, and he said he was sound. He got all these off pictures together, him, his wife, everything. Nice. He said he was a brand new. He was a fantastic. He was meeting his hero. He said he didn't disappoint, you know.
Oh, incredible player. One of the best midfielders of this generation. You mentioned Juventus there. That's what I'm wearing tonight, 80s US one. It's not St. Mirren, because I've worn this before. People have been like, oh, Phil with St. Mirren top on. It's like, no, it's not St. Mirren, it's Juventus. Don't remember Michel Platini wearing this shirt. But yeah, it's a 1980s Juve one. But yeah, he dinks that penalty right down the middle. And yeah, I think Russell's mentioned this on the show. It was one of the moments where if he's got the bottle to do that, it kind of intimidates the next penalty takers coming up, because England do what they do best in a penalty shootout. They completely bottle it. Ashley Cole and Ashley Young both end up missing the next two penalties, and Diamante goes on and scores the winning penalty to send Italy through, and England are heading home. They are out again. Football is not coming home, but England certainly are. But as I said at the start there, we were doing the pre-tournament roundup. England aren't the only ones, the nearby neighbours who've qualified for this tournament, because the first time since 2002, Ireland have made it to a tournament under Giovanni Trapattoni, but unfortunately it was no luck for the Irish in this one. They didn't have the best of times. Now, I can remember at this point in time where I was working, we did the classic sweepstake thing, but we did it one where it was a score predictor one. And me being the good Celtic fan that I'm at, Ireland qualifying from this group, and when I think about it in hindsight, I was like, what were you thinking, Phil? Like, I had them down to get 5 points. It was like they'll beat Croatia and they'll get a draw with Italy and a draw with Spain. But then again, Ireland were always good at tournaments for getting a scalp, weren't they, Liam? They always were.
Aye, right back to New York City when they took on Italy.
Yes, that's right. The Ray Houghton goal, brilliant.
Right. Good Castleburg boy, you know.
Aye, that's true. I
like a scalp. That's always good about them, you know.
Aye, did he not score as well in the 1988 Euros? He scored the winner against England, or was that Ronnie Whelan that scored it? They beat England in the 88 Euros in Munich, and I've got a vision in my head of Houghton, but maybe I'm thinking about the World Cup goal in '94. But he definitely beat England. Somebody again in the chat will probably come in and say it was either Ronnie Whelan or Ray Houghton that scored the goal. But see, they've got that. If you look at 1990, the first ever World Cup, they get to the quarterfinals. 94, they beat Italy in the group stages. And in 2002, they got to the second round, I think it was, and they drew with Germany in the group stages. So they were always good for getting an upset. But yeah, in my score predictor thing, I had them down to beat Croatia, draw with Spain and draw with Italy. 5 points and they'll get through the group. I think I had them getting out of the group with Spain or something. Maybe with Spain or Italy. I've probably picked Italy just out of spite, because I've said so on this show. I'm not the biggest fan of this Spanish team, but this is why I'm not a very good gambler, folks. This is why you shouldn't listen to me. I think it was Gary Brown before said that we should do a thing on the Boise bus where every member picks like a result for the week, and we can have like a coupon thing. I was like, you don't want to listen to me? I'm like the world's worst gambler. Do not listen to me at all. I've not got a fucking clue at this stuff. So please do not do it at all. But yeah, I can always remember when I looked at it at the end, I was like, fucking, I've got Ireland qualifying for the next round here. Excellent. But it was anything but that. They obviously had a bit of a shocker. They played Croatia in the first game. Mario Mandzukic put the Croatians ahead, and then Sean St. Ledger grabbed an equaliser midway through the half. But then Nikita Jelavic popped up, somebody that we know all too well, isn't that right? Nikita Jelavic, he'd left Rangers at this point. He left halfway through the 2011-12 season. I think he's at West Ham or Everton at this stage. But when I watched the goals back, I was like, he's offside. See if VAR was in play at that point. He's offside in that goal. Clearly is. It's like so offside, but didn't matter. Ireland were absolutely abysmal. Mario Mandzukic scores another goal in the second half to make it 3-1. And then they go on and play Spain in the next group game, and Spain just absolutely wiped the floor with them, beat them 4-0, no bother at all. And then in the last game against Italy, when they're essentially out, they end up losing 2-0. But hilariously, Mario Balotelli doing Mario Balotelli things, Liam. He scores, I'll say an overhead kick. That's being a bit generous. He does sort of kick it over his shoulder essentially, but it's not like a full on where he gets like up in the air and overhead kicks it. He's leaning against the defender, and as he leans back, he sort of hooks the ball over his shoulder into the net. But he gets up and starts basically talking shit towards his manager, because the commentator makes a point of saying he's not done anything in this tournament up until that moment. And then you see Leonardo Bonucci runs over and basically puts his hand over Balotelli's mouth, like, shut up, because he's basically like, sarcastically applauding towards the manager and pointing at him like, you should be starting me, or you should trust more in me. And it's like Balotelli doing Balotelli things. So Liam, at this time there was a lot of crazy Balotelli stories doing the rounds, a bit like the Chuck Norris memes that do the rounds. Have you got a favourite Balotelli story from this point in time at all?
All of them. I mean, fucking Balotelli, I remember just looking at punk rock is back, baby. It's just like, Jesus Christ, here's all your bad rock and roll stars all rolled into a football player.
Oh, big time.
Football player with a personality. Oh my God, he was just a powder keg. I loved it. I like all the City stories. There's one, I think, where he does an interview with Noel Gallagher. Noel Gallagher's asking him, is it true or is it false? And the ones that are true, crazy, like fireworks through the letterboxes.
The fireworks one.
Like, the one about taking the kid to school in the limousine.
That's right,
all sorts of stuff like that. The fucking hat with all the fingers on it, the glove.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
I loved that. It was like taking Lenny Kravitz to a different level, with the big scarves and all that. But,
he was something else, man. He really was.
He just was good. That game where he got sent off for trying to backheel the goalie, that was in Vancouver here against the Whitecaps.
That was a friendly, wasn't it? Aye.
He got a friendly for doing some ridiculous trick to try and backheel it at the goal for disrespecting the opponent. But he was gallus, wasn't he?
Roberto Mancini was fuming on the sideline when he tried that. I can remember it. Aye. He was gallus. He was a mad character, but he's one of these examples of, he's a young guy, he just got loads of money thrown at him, and he's just went mental with it. But yeah, I love the fireworks one. But at the times you were hearing the stories and going, is that true? Surely that can't be. Then you see the Noel Gallagher interview where you're like, well, most of it actually was true. He was an absolute maniac, but a brilliant football player. But very there was one as well where apparently he turned up at a press conference when he played for Inter. He's an AC. I think AC Milan is his team that he supports, but he's played for both Inter and AC. It's either that way or it's the other way around. But basically, he went to the press conference for Inter Milan wearing an AC Milan shirt. And it's because he wanted to play for AC Milan, and it's like, I don't think his employers are going to be too happy with that one. I know they share a stadium, and maybe the rivalry's not that intense between them, but still, that's quite a slap in the face to your employer. But yeah, he's I can't remember if it's Inter as the team he supports and AC, but he's definitely done that with the Milan clubs. But absolute madman, and it's mad as well when you look at the trajectory of his career, because he's still a decent enough age, I think. I mean, especially in this day and age when footballers, you look at the World Cup there, like Ronaldo is 37, he'll be 38 early next year. You get Pepe at the back for Portugal, he's 39, he's still playing. Look at Ibrahimovic playing for AC Milan in Serie A, 41 years old, and it's like, we're in a day and age where players are playing a bit longer at a higher level, and Balotelli should have went on and achieved so much in the game, but he's his own worst enemy. And we've seen strikers here at Celtic as well who maybe, okay, they don't have the talent level that Balotelli had or that scope, but again, we're like, you are literally your own worst enemy. Anthony Stokes, Lee Griffiths, who was in the news literally today for something as well. And it's like, you know, you're the one that's stopping you getting to that level. This is the problem here. So Balotelli was exactly like that as well. Balotelli just mental one.
It's, you know, I don't remember him I remember him for the meme as well. One of the best ever memes, the one like that, and the animation and creativity people put to that was unbelievable. You know.
Oh, I know. And that's obviously coming up in a little while. The famous flex celebration and the quote that he had as well about not celebrating goals, which was a cracker. But yeah, as I say, when we go back to Ireland's campaign, they're out. They finished bottom of the group. They didn't win a game. They only scored 1 goal and they conceded 9 in the end. So yeah, not the best at times. But Ireland would be back at a tournament not too far away from here, Euro 2016 under, say it quietly, Martin O'Neill, because he always used to get a mention on here. So yeah, Martin O'Neill will be the manager when they return to tournament 2016, which we've actually already covered. We've actually jumped ahead and done Euro 2016. And if you don't know why we jumped ahead and done it, just go and check that episode out. There's a very good reason why. But yeah, well, that means when we do next week, Euro World Cup 2014. I don't know if we'll do the World Cup 2018. We'll just do a sort of 3-week thing, then we'll go back to the Celtic ones. It's just a wee 3-4 week thing until the football starts up. So we've done Euro 2016 already. It's only got 1 more to go. But next week's one I think will be good because there's a certain manager at that tournament in World Cup 2014 that we can talk about. An Australian guy, you might have heard of him, mate. You might go on and achieve something in Celtic's history. We'll need to dissect that one, but we'll get to that next week. But yeah, we'll move on now on this tournament. See, Ireland are out, England are out. We're heading into the knockout stages for some headlines here. So I say at the start, big Georgie Samaras, he did cause a wee headline in the knockout stages because he did grab a goal for Greece. So say they were kind of... I was at a phase with Greece at this point where after Euro 2004, I just had this thing where every Greece team since then, it's like, no, I don't want to see Greece get anywhere at any terms. Even if Samaras was playing, I was just like, no, I can't. I'm still scarred by the 2004 tournament with the way they just anti-footballed their way to the trophy. So when they snuck through the group stages and came up against Germany, they did get an equaliser against Germany, but then they went up the gears. But yeah, Big Georgie did get his goal. Nice ball across the box. He just slid in there, got it before Manuel Neuer did, and got them back to 1 each. But yeah, Germany ended up going on and winning 4-2 and ended up smashing them. So poor Georgius, he's coming home. He's coming back to Glasgow at that point on the plane because Greece are out. And yeah, the other headline as well that I thought was quite interesting in the knockout stages is we had a heavyweight contest between Spain and France. So Spain are obviously chasing that 3rd trophy in a row, but France, they look like they're getting back on track in this one, but no, Spain just passed them to death off the park. They just hold on to the ball, sideways passing, wee triangles of play, the whole false 9 as well, where they've got like Fabregas playing as an auxiliary forward. They do all that. France can't beat them. Xabi Alonso scores 2, and Cristiano Ronaldo helps Portugal get by Czech Republic in the quarterfinals. But speaking of Ronaldo, we talked about this last week, and it's been interesting with the way Ronaldo's headlines have been the last few weeks, especially after the Piers Morgan interview and what's happened at Man United. And I think Ronaldo's a phenomenal player, no doubt about it. I'll never ever doubt how great a player he is. When it comes to the Messi-Ronaldo debate, I've always said the same thing. Just enjoy both of them. When it comes to comparing them side by side. And to me, they're different in what they do. They're both good at what they do in different ways. Some people are very passionately, it's all about Messi, and some are very passionately defend Ronaldo and so forth. But there is a side to Ronaldo, and he can back it up. And obviously, Russell mentioned this last week. We talked about the Nike advert, and I said about his ego and how the end of that Nike advert was the Cristiano Ronaldo movie, and then there was a story about the 2014 final, the Champions League, where he scored the 4th goal deep in extra time and absolutely hams up the celebration just because the cameras were rolling that night for his film. But this European Championship, the game between Portugal and Spain goes to a penalty shootout after a pretty dire 0-0 draw. And the story goes that Ronaldo called an audible in the agreed lineup for the 5 takers because Spain missed the first penalty and Portugal were up next. And apparently Ronaldo had called an audible, but he was going to go earlier in the 5 and went, no, I'm going last, because he'd already seen in his head. He saw the headlines, he saw the marquee, Liam, but he's going to score the winning penalty, the 5th penalty, the deciding one, and he's going to send Portugal through. But what he didn't bank on was that the other Portuguese players might be a bit ranked rotten at their penalties, because Rangers legend Bruno Alves missed one of them, as well as a Wolves midfielder at the moment, João Moutinho. But yeah, Ronaldo, the story is at the time he's changed the lineup to try and get the glory, and it backfired on him, sadly. But how do you feel about the Ronaldo stuff? You know, what's your opinion on his, like, the ego and all that? And
I think that's what makes him the player he is. You have to have that sort of ego. I mean, he's not one of the best players. He's considered one of the greatest of all time. You know, just like the fact that him and Messi, I think Ronaldo personally is a more complete player. I think the ego of him going on, I think he's been a brand for such a long time, you know, that's outlived so many other ones. And I think he's still, I mean, he's looking good in this World Cup as well. He still gets up some height. He can still put a shot in. Doesn't look unfit to me. But I've always liked him. But I think you have to have that attitude. You have to have that one-sidedness that I'm the best in the world, and then everything that he does, his standards, is all about trying to maintain that as much as he can. I mean, super polished and all that, and body's a tempo, and you know, probably a right boring bastard, but you know, it's controversial. Doesn't mind coming out and calling the shots. And I think this World Cup, I think for him to come out and say that before the World Cup, even that, or the Euros, World Cup, that is calculated. That is calculated. He's basically setting himself up to take the last penalty. That at the end of this cup, the story could very well be about him.
Yeah.
If they start progressing, this becomes a redemption story of Ronaldo, and it's one of the biggest "I told you so, get it right" fucking obvious you ever see on the planet, and that's what it could end up. And that seems to be the sort of storylines that attract themselves to guys like Ronaldo and Messi and big players that, you know, that imagine and work towards big things.
It's the thing that I've just not enjoyed the most about the recent headlines is who he's gave the headlines to, and who, like, I mean, Piers Morgan is just, he's a prick, right? And it's so sad and pathetic being on Twitter and seeing him just like at every opportunity bigging up Ronaldo. It's like, you're 57 years old, mate. It's like, what is this? Like the other day with the whole controversy against Uruguay, where did he score that header or not, right? And he's like, Piers Morgan tweeted something like, Ronaldo texted me and told me he definitely scored it. It's like, fucking hell, man. Like, so that's not doing Ronaldo any favours, because Piers Morgan, man, of all people.
Morgan, innit? I mean,
aye.
That's what it's, you know, we talked about that last week with Suarez and people like that. Some people just fall up. You know, doesn't matter what that guy does, he still managed to like grab the attention of everybody, get the coin, and you know.
Aye. He's that's been going on, and then there was headlines and all, and I hope this wasn't true. I hope this was just some daft fake news headline that gained a bit of traction, because apparently the Portuguese FA were going to go to FIFA the day after that game with conclusive evidence that Ronaldo scored that goal, and it's like, why would you care? You've won 2-0 and you're through. Why would that be an issue? Why would you go to FIFA to make sure Ronaldo got that goal? And it's like, I really hope that wasn't true. So like, this isn't doing him any favours at all. At the end of the day, he's won the game. He's through. Stop it. But yeah, Piers Morgan has just been, I was going to say he's been an embarrassment recently on Twitter. He's always an embarrassment on Twitter, but this is especially because a few years ago he wrote an article about how Messi's the better player than Ronaldo. And now he's doing that Donald Trump thing where it basically, when presented with the facts, it's still no fake news. You know, that didn't happen. And it's like, it did. There's literally archived newspaper headlines that you wrote where you bigged up Messi over Ronaldo. And now it's like, oh, I love Ronaldo now because he gave me that exclusive interview. And it's like, I was badly judged to all people, man. But Yeah, and he is still an incredible football player, but a couple of things recently he's done were very ill-advised, I would say, going with Morgan. Give an interview to anybody else, really, other than him, please. But yeah, saying this one, Euro 2012, he obviously wanted the headlines against Spain. It didn't quite come to fruition. But in the other semi-final, Germany and Italy would play, two absolute powerhouses. Germany actually have a rotten record against Italy in semi-finals or in tournaments in general. Italy seem to have the Indian side over them, and once again the Italians beat them like they did at the 2006 World Cup semi-final. They beat Germany again, and it was what that man Mario Balotelli popped up with 2 goals. And of course, we talked about it. It's obviously the picture that's on the thumbnail, and of course, for anybody that's not seen it, this happened. Look at that. Absolute Adonis there, absolute beast. Mario Balotelli flexing there. He scored the first goal and just pulled the shot off and did that. And then he had the quote, I think, afterward, where they asked about why he doesn't celebrate goals, and he says along the lines of, "Does a postman celebrate when he delivers a letter? It's my job," essentially. But again, just as a character, but he was phenomenal that night. That was like a real coming of age moment. And again, goes back to what I said about Balotelli. You look at performances like that where he basically ragdolled Germany, and you're like, right, that should be the thing that pushes him on to the next level. He's already at Man City. He's won the league there. That should push him in. He should be up there winning Ballon d'Ors in a few years' time. And it just didn't happen. But on that night in particular, Germany had no answer for him.
Aye, he ran amok, didn't he?
Oh,
he always had that in him.
Aye, as Scott House says, Balotelli, a wasted talent, but hey, I think he had a good life. Aye, you're no kidding. Aye, some of the mad stuff that he got up to was just. We talk about memes. I think memes were born around about this time in the sort of internet age, sort of early 2010s. But yeah, Balotelli was just some of the stories and urban legends that were doing the rounds at the time, just ridiculous. But aye, obviously turns up and ragdolls Germany and gets Italy through to that final. But they are on now. They're going into the final to play Spain. So here we go. This is the history-making one. Say the history maker. Spain are chasing 3 international trophies in a row. Never ever been done before. Even between like the South American teams with their Copa America. Teams have won the World Cup and the Euros together. Obviously, France have held it in recent times. Germany did it in the 70s. So it is something that can be done. But 3 trophies in the bounce, 2 Euros and a World Cup sandwiched in between there. Now, here's something Spain and Italy have already played at this tournament, because at this stage, they've actually played in the group stages and drew 1 apiece. And if I remember correctly from watching that game, Italy were probably the better team on the day. Di Natale gave them a lead, but then Cesc Fabregas got an equaliser not long afterward. But from my point of view, a guy who wasn't big on Spain's tiki-taka system, I was quite hopeful going into this final. Because again, I've always got a wee leaning towards Italy because of the stuff with Baggio and that. So I always want to see Italy do well. So I was like, right, if anyone's going to beat this Spanish team, because I say I'm still getting scars from the 2010 World Cup and I'm strangling teams out of games. Like, this is it. Italy are going to do it. I know they played so well in the group game. They were unlucky not to win. Balotelli's looking like he means business right now. They're going to do this. No. Again, this is why I'm a bad gambler. Don't listen to me at all. Spain absolutely ragdolled them, because up to that point, I'd felt Spain had played a bit within themselves. Like, they hadn't really... I mean, they beat Ireland 4-0, but Ireland were the whipping boys of the tournament. But every other game they played, they had a 2-0 victory over France that wasn't particularly a spectacular game. Drew 0-0 in the semi-final with Portugal. Got through on penalties. They hadn't had a great tournament where they'd really shown how good they can be. But Jesus Christ, in this final, they showed how good they can be. They turned up big style in this one. David Silva gave them the lead after 14 minutes. And then Jordi Alba, the left-back, popped up with a goal just before half-time. And at this point, it's looking ominous. It's looking ominous for the Italians. They're sinking without a trace. Second half, they can barely lay a glove on Spain. They just pass it around them as they would do with Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta. That wee system where they just hold on to the ball, make you chase it. And with minutes to go, 2 substitutes came on and got some goals. Fernando Torres scored and Juan Mata scored as well to wrap it off. The biggest victory ever in a Euros or World Cup final, biggest winning margin, a 4-0 victory for Spain, comprehensive in the end. They wrap up trophy number 3 in big style, lifting their second Euros in a matter of years. But the thing is, Liam, where does this Spain side rank in the list of best sides ever? Because I've seen people in our chat, and we've talked about them saying this is the greatest footballing side ever. I've seen people all over social media for years and years going on about this Spain side is better. And they do have the medals and the trophies that can back it up. But what about yourself, Liam? How do you feel about this Spain team compared to, say, 1970 Brazil? I know they're very highly sought after.
I don't know. I mean, you make an argument for it when you look at that team. The fact that they won 3 big international trophies on the trot. I mean, but they don't stand out as individual players. And when you line up all the best players of all time that have played in the World Cup, you wonder, despite that being the best team, how many players would get into the lineups, your first picks. I mean, Javi Alonso and Iniesta are all good players.
Yep.
Would they make your top ones of all time? Probably no. Right? That much competition there. But if you look at it as a team that had volume, I mean, bringing on 2 boys that can score goals in a cup final as substitutes, and that shows you the depth this team had as well. And Spanish football was riding high, and was Puyo on that team as well.
Who? Sorry,
Carlos Puyo.
Puyo was. I'll double check that one because I think he may have retired.
His last era, or he'd already gone by that time.
Because he's definitely the World Cup in 2010 because he scores against Germany. But I know that the captain of these, in fact, the captain of all the tournaments that they won was Iker Casillas, even though they had leaders in the team like Sergio Ramos and Carlos Puyol. I'll have a look and tell you the Spanish squad. Albiol, Piqué, Martinez, Juanfran. No, Puyol wasn't there, so I think he must be retired at this point.
Right, But anyway, still an absolute, a really, really good side, a good team. So we Gordon would say, good teammates.
Good team. No, they were solid. See, when I talked about the tiki-taka stuff when we brought it up, like, I enjoy Barcelona's variation of it because I felt they had more explosive players, even though they've got the midfield 3 of Busquets, Iniesta, Xavi, and of course Fabregas features strongly in this Spanish team, and he was at Barca at the time. There was just something more exciting about Barca's because they would do all the little fancy triangles of play, but then he'd pass it to Messi, and he would just do something magical. They also had Pedro at the time, who was quite an explosive winger. And David Villa might still be in the Barca team at this point, or he's definitely on his sort of like last legs at Barca. But during that era, they had like out-and-out strikers playing. But this Spanish team, obviously, the whole tiki-taka evolves into the false 9 formation, where you've got another midfielder on the park, and the 2 wingers essentially are kind of working as forwards. It's nothing like Craig Levine's 4-6-0. It's not like that at all. A lot of technical ability involved in this one. But I've always preferred Barca's, but this Spanish team, I just didn't get much of a thrill out of it at all. Some phenomenal players, and I don't take anything away from how they achieve it, because there's a lot of work has to go into it. They have to keep moving. That's the key to it. You're always passing and moving, making space for the next guy. So it's not like you just stand, you pass the ball away and then just stand there. There was always movement constantly. So that was impressive from that aspect. But yeah, this Spanish team, like when it came to the 3 tournaments they won, I'd always say my favourite one was the Euro 2008 one under Luis Aragonés, because they played 2 strikers in most games. They played Torres and David Villa together, who were a phenomenal, explosive partnership up front. And for me, that's what I love to see instead of this whole sacrificing forwards. Teams not playing forwards. To me, it's like, well, what's the point in having a forward in your squad if you're not playing them? It's like, to me, it just didn't resonate with me. Overall, best team ever. I say, well, obviously there's teams long before I was born. I always hear about 1970 Brazil team, Pele, Jairzinho, Carlos Alberto, Gerson, all these players, how amazing they were. I've seen many of the archive footage and watched some of the goals that they score. Phenomenal team. 1982 Brazil team's another one that didn't win the World Cup, and they are constantly, lauded over with like Zico and Socrates in the midfield. Phenomenal teams. The France team of the late 90s, early 2000s, they've got to be up there as well. Zidane was at the peak of his powers in this era. Just phenomenal. The Desailly, Henry, Deschamps, Blanc, phenomenal stuff. But I'm still old school in that sense, where I like it. Defenders, there's midfielders, and there's forwards on the park. When it's all this, I think Russell called it last week, football by numbers, I think he called it, where it was becoming just all about systems now. See, 2010 World Cup was the 4-2-3-1 was born. Every team wanted to play 4-2-3-1. And also Scott House just asked, saying he's 39. I'm actually 37, so yes, we are around that age, mate. We are indeed. I was 85, I was born. So, yeah, anything from the 94 World Cup onwards, I've been quite lucky to see. But, yeah, anything before there, if it was between 85 and 93, I'm quite blurry on, just going by archive footage. Yeah, anything before that, I wasn't born then. But, yeah, this Spain team, I say, seems to just had like falls. And you know what the ironic bit is, after me saying all this, do you know who won the Golden Boot at this, or one of the Golden Boots? Because it was shared between three or four players. Fernando Torres ended up winning a Golden Boot despite being a striker for the Spanish team, but he came off as a sub in most games. But he only scored 3 goals, so it was a very low-scoring tournament. Multiple players finished on 3 goals for the tournament, Williams. That sums up. It wasn't the most thrilling of tournaments in the end, but that was the story of Euro 2012. But yeah, it was compared to, I say, a bit of a palate cleanser after the World Cup 2010. But the next one, spoiler, the 2014 World Cup is my favourite World Cup that I've watched, because I felt like the teams really went for it in the group stages, and there was some bonkers moments like Spain getting leathered 5-1 off Holland, and of course Germany 7, Brazil 1. But we'll talk about that next week. And as I say, there's a certain Australian manager that was making some waves that we'll definitely be looking at the early signs of Ange Postecoglou being on. I was going to say on our radar. I'd be very surprised if many Celtic fans at that point in time are like, you can see him as a future Celtic manager. But I've got vague recollections of how Australia played. But if you actually told me at the time, can you name the manager of Australia at that tournament? I'd be like, no, I've just watched that entire tournament. I can't remember his name at all. So we'll be talking about him obviously next week and what we saw with the performances that Australia put in. But looking forward to that one, Liam. James Rodriguez was out of this world at that tournament.
He was the big name that sort of came up, but what a weird career he ended up having that, because that was his shop window, and he done well. But I can remember I think he was in the US a couple of years later. Wasn't he far before he was playing in the US? Yeah,
it's the thing with Rodriguez. Last night on the TNF, we talked about how well Aaron Moy's been playing at this World Cup, and I said to Russell, like, I don't read too much into performances at World Cups, because sometimes a player can just suit an international team system more than their club. And the example I used was Paul Pogba. Not that I'm saying Aaron Moy is on the level of Paul Pogba, but you look at Pogba, Euro 2016 and World Cup 2018, he was phenomenal in Didier Deschamps' teams. But then you go back and play for Man United under Mourinho, Van Gaal, whoever, and it just wasn't. How can this guy be one of the best midfielders, or easily one of the best midfielders in the world, and doesn't turn it in? And it's like, so some players are just suited better to maybe their international manager, and James Rodriguez is a phenomenal example of that. He's also a player that's very, very talented, in an unbelievable World Cup, got a big move to Real Madrid off the back of it, and then you find him playing for like Everton not too long ago, and then he had a run in the Middle East after Everton, and that'll be interesting to talk about that, because he does score one of the best goals I've ever seen at World Cup, the one against Uruguay. It's absolute rasper. He pings it in off the crossbar, if I remember correctly, on a volley. Brilliant goal. So, looking forward to that one. But before we go, Liam, because we're coming up to the 2 hour mark, so this is proper Bustalgia. This is how it used to be. It used to be a 2 hour show. We're coming up to the 2 hour mark, so let's wrap it up now. Let's go back to the trivia from the start of the show, Liam, if you can remember that one. The 7 players who have scored. So for the benefit of people who came in late, there are 7 players at this tournament who scored a goal and have also scored a goal in a competitive game against Celtic. Can you name the 7 players, Liam?
Iniesta?
No.
No.
He scored against Celtic, but not on the scorer charts at this tournament.
He didn't score at the World Cup? I mean, at Euros?
No, he did not. There is a Spanish player on there, though.
Aye. Is it Villa?
Not Villa.
Yeah.
Barcelona, you're getting hotter. You're getting close here.
Oh, Jose Aldo.
No. Remember I was talking about the false nine, going on about the auxiliary forward? Who was deployed as the auxiliary forward in the false nine for Spain, even though he's not a forward, the extra midfielder that they would stick on?
Avi Alonso. No,
I tell you, Cesc Fabregas. It was Cesc Fabregas scored against us with Barcelona. They beat us the year after. We got the 2-1 victory against them. He scored in the game at Celtic Park. Now, there's a couple on there that are AC Milan. Think AC Milan in the 2000s.
No, I'm not. Shevchenko. No, I didn't.
Yes. Shevchenko, yeah. Scored against us under Martin O'Neill in 2004-2005. He scored a goal at this tournament. Yep. Somebody we were talking about during this show, talking about how great he is, how cool he is.
Oh, Pirlo.
Andrea Pirlo scored, yes, in the same game, scored the third goal.
And what about Müller? What, Bayern Munich?
Thomas Müller has never scored a goal at the European Championships. This is a long-running joke with him. Yeah, he's still not scored a goal at the Euros. Scored plenty at World Cups. Never scored.
Lewandowski got his first this year as well, huh?
He did. Lewandowski's first World Cup goal was. But Lewandowski's not an answer, by the way. I thought he was going to be an answer, but he
I thought so as well. But then that was his first goal I saw the other night. I keep wanting to say Messi, but he's no European.
He's definitely scored against us. There's somebody that I mentioned earlier on who played for Rangers.
Jelinek.
Nikita Jelic is one. Yep.
Jelic.
So the last three, one is Italian, one is a Russian, and one is English.
Okay. One of the Coles is the English one, right?
Nope.
No.
Think at this time, who's England's biggest and best player, the superstar, the poster boy? Wayne Rooney scored against us in a Champions League game for Man United in 08-09. Yep.
And then we've got an Italian and a what? And a German?
A Russian.
A Russian?
A Russian.
Who would the Russian be? No, I'll let the bus will figure that one out.
The bus will figure it out. He's one of those guys that's always linked with us, and we never ever capitalised on it. Missed the boat on that one. But the other Italian you would do kind of well, because he only scored against us in the 2011-12 season. It was Antonio Di Natale, the Udinese striker. He scored at this tournament. Now, the Russian one is we played against him in the qualifiers in the 07-08 season. He was playing for Spartak Moscow.
Sweet. No, Arshavin, is it?
No, it's not Arshavin. No, it's not him, because Arshavin has scored against us, but he didn't score in this tournament.
That might have been, what do you call him, the other St. Petersburg team?
Zenit Petersburg, aye.
Zenit.
Aye.
Russian player.
We were linked to this guy after he did some damage against us in the qualifiers, even though we won, and then we spent the entire 07-08 season constantly getting linked to him, never signed him, and he ended up at Tottenham Hotspur.
No, long COVID, mate. No idea.
Roman Pavlyuchenko, remember him? Pavlyuchenko, yeah. So the 7 players that have scored against Celtic, that scored at this tournament, Andriy Shevchenko, Cesc Fabregas, Wayne Rooney, Nikita Jelic, Antonio Di Natale, Andrea Pirlo, and Roman Pavlyuchenko is the answers to that one. So yeah, that's us. We are out of here for this week. So yeah, regarding what's coming up on the bus this week, say Russell is currently doing his MC gig regarding the logo that's in the top right corner. You see the brain tumour charity, which, by the way, you can also still donate to that. Russell will keep the link on videos for the next week or so. It's in the description just now if you want to go in and chip anything else. So he's doing his MCing for that one, hosting a charity event. So that's why he's not joined us tonight. But over the weekend, let's say on Sunday, we are actually going to be in a studio. We're going to G4 Claim Studio to actually do the show. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a live show. We're going to record it and then upload it. But either way, we're going to be recording some capacity from a studio, and then it will find its way on YouTube somehow. See, whether it's live or not, we don't know. We're going to have to get taught how to use all the cameras in there. So that's going to be happening. And then we'll be back to Monday Club. there's a chance that Russell might do an impromptu show tomorrow, because obviously the news that we did earlier on, myself, Liam and Mark, the judge was in full flow. The judge came on and he struck down that news earlier on about the Peter Lawwell news. So I say it's a big story right now. Russell may want to also come on and have his say on it. So he may do like we did last week, the old S Express might appear. But if you're subscribed to the channel, there's a reason to subscribe. You'll also get a notification for it if it does pop up. But if not, there'll definitely be some content going out on Sunday when we record it from a nice shiny studio. And then we'll be back to Monday again, Monday Club and so on. And Celtic is not too far away. We're only a couple of weeks out. But Liam, that's another one in the books. So enjoy tonight. We powwow on Euro 2012.
Aye, it's great. Thanks for everybody for the comments. Thanks for all the good stuff and all that. And tell Russell, just have the private jet pick me up at the usual spot, okay?
Okay, aye, we'll get you over. We'll be sending that private jet out there. But yeah, next week we'll do World Cup 2014, and then the week after that we'll get back on to the Celtic years, get on that, because yeah, the season will be resuming just around about that time as well. So yeah, until then, I'm going to try and run the outro. Hopefully the Gremlins don't try and strike us down, because they've been playing up like crazy on StreamYard. But yeah, we're out of here, folks, and we shall indeed catch you later. See you, folks.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.